Hi, welcome back to Bedtime Stories with Danyah and Guests. And this Tuesday, I'm going to share a story with you about the very first tooth fairy. I wrote this story for my goddaughter Poppy when she was little. Her mum, Sada, wasn't sure what to say to Poppy when Poppy asked what happened to her tooth. But before I tell you the story, I think we have the answer to a riddle. And the answer is pin and needle. Pins and needles. That's pretty good, isn't it? I think there were a few of you who got this right. And I think, Dexter, you probably got this right, didn't you? Well done. Although I think it was a family effort. We'll have another riddle at the end of the story, but for now, snuggle up, snuggle down, and let's begin. So I wonder if you know that once upon a time there were fairies, elves, sprites and pixies who lived in every single nook and cranny in the whole world. The fairy, elves, sprites and pixies, who were known collectively as the Thesps, would make the whole world more beautiful, more sparkly. They would sprinkle their special fairy dust all over the world. And they did all sorts of things. They lived together in tribes. But the fairies of the forest, for example, they would wax the toadstools or shine and buff up the conkers. And sometimes they would go to the root children underneath the earth and work with the earth fairies. And then they would buff up all of the gemstones and the crystals of the earth. The field elves, they would work through all the meadows and they would sing the leaves and the blossom and the fruit awake. Those sprites lived by the seaside and they at night would collect up all of the beautiful shells and make sure that they were sprinkled all over the beach for when you walk there in the morning, and they would glisten in the sunshine. And the pixies, they would go off to the playgrounds, to the fields and to the hedgerows, and they painted all the colours onto the flowers. And every day, the fairies, elves, sprites and pixies would work hard. And at night, they would gather together in their tribes, build a big bonfire, sit around it, and eat the most delicious foods. They'd sing songs, dance and share stories until Queen Nab and Grandfather Sun would tell them when it was time to go to bed. Now I wonder also if you know about the traditions of the Thesps, because they had a very special birthday tradition. When any one of them came of age, they went on an adventure. But before they went on an adventure, they would receive a little package, a little bundle of presents. And they could take those with them out on their adventure, on their quest, and use them in whichever way they liked. There was one fairy, Fairy Faye, who was from the woodland tribe. And it happened to be coming up for her birthday, and she was coming of age. I don't know if you know, but fairies, elves, sprites and pixies live for a very, very long time. Some of them live until they're 999 years old. And so their coming of age is when they reach 121 years old. Oh, that's pretty old, isn't it? Well, Fairy Faye happened to be 121 years old tomorrow morning. And when she woke up and she came out of her leaf hammock, she looked down and sure enough, there was her birthday bundle. She was so excited and she had a little peep inside. There was a blue wooden enemy, a bluebell bulb, A blueberry and a lapis lazuli gemstone of the deepest blue. Blue was her favourite colour. She had the bundle. She waved goodbye to all of her tribe and she flew off. She'd never flown out of the forest before, and just as she was leaving the forest, she heard Woodpecker swooped down towards her and said, come with me to the woods, to the ancient enchanted woods, where you will see the biggest, most enormous oak tree in the world, ancient and magnificent. And I will also show you the tiniest saplings that will eventually grow into those massive oaks. Fairy Fae said, thank you. But she already knew the forest quite well, and although the enchanted wood sounded really exciting, she thought, no, I'd like to explore somewhere different. And she just pulled the little bluebell bulb and handed it to Woodpecker so that he could take it to the enchanted woods. And she flew on her way. She came out of the forest and into the meadows. It was very beautiful. And there she saw Crow crowing at her. Crow, 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 said Big Black Crow. Come with me. I will show you the sweet corn, the sheaths of wheat and barley, and even if we go to the right places, massive sunflowers that turn as the sun goes up and turn as the sun goes down. Oh, this really did sound rather exciting. But Fairy Fae said, thank you, Crow. Thank you very much. And here's a little wooden enemy for you so that you can put it around your neck. But I think I'm going to go somewhere further afield. Just as she was wondering where she might go, down swooped the most enormous grey and white bird. It had a wingspan that just took her breath away. It swooped underneath her and she landed on its back. Oh, what a noisy, busy, brash sort of bird it was. Give me a bluebell. Give me a wooden enemy. I want your blueberry. Give me your blueberry. I want to eat your blueberry. Seagull was very demanding. But little Fairy Fae threw up the blueberry and it landed in the seagull's mouth. I will take you to the most beautiful place in the whole world, the shimmering ocean, and there you will be able to sit on the sand and look out. It is exquisite. Ooh, Fairy Fae didn't even know what the ocean was. Yes, she thought, that's what I want to go. I want to go to the seaside. And so Great Big Seagull flew across the meadows, up and over the hills, right across the forests, and then they began to fly over the roofs of houses. Just on their way, Fairy Fae began to taste salt on her lips, and she began to hear sounds that she'd never heard before, the rushing and the storming of the sea. But she also smelt something different. Oh, this is where I have to be, she said to Seagull. Let me here, drop me here. And Seagull just dropped her gently in a back garden before Seagull flew off. She was flying around the garden wondering what it was, and she saw an open window. And there, in the kitchen, was a woman, a beautiful woman, and she was whipping up eggs and butter. Fairy Fae didn't know it, but she was baking a birthday cake. And Fairy Fae could smell something really lovely already in the oven. So she crept in through the window, and unbeknownst to Sada, the mummy, who was baking a birthday cake for her daughter Poppy, Fairy Fae sat and watched in awe. And just then, little Poppy came skipping through, and she was holding something in her hand, although Fairy Fay didn't know what it was. "Look, Mummy, it's out! It's come out!" And Mummy was really excited. "Oh, so it has! Look at that! So it has!" Fairy Fay thought, "Something's come out, I wonder what it is," and she saw a tiny little tooth. Oh my goodness, a tooth in her hand instead of in her mouth? That seems strange. But Poppy and her mum were both happy about it. Now, back in those days, people didn't really know what to do with their teeth. Their tooth. Sometimes they would throw it over the top of the roof. It was thought to bring good luck or to scare away the demons. But Poppy didn't want to do that. "Mum, what happens to our teeth when they come out?" Now, Mummy was really good at cooking, really brilliant at baking, but she didn't know what happened to the teeth. She didn't know what to tell Poppy. She said, "I don't know." "Well, I tell you what," said Poppy, "I want to put this tooth underneath my pillow." "All right," said Mummy. "Yes, why don't you do that?" And they went upstairs, up to Poppy's bedroom, and she sat and popped that tiny tooth under her pillow. And her mum said, "It might still be there in the morning, you know." "That's all right," said Poppy. "I don't mind." And she almost instantly fell fast asleep. Now, Fairy Fay had followed them upstairs into this beautiful bedroom. And when Mummy had closed the door, Fairy Fay leant underneath the pillow and took out that tiny little tooth and just popped it in her pocket. And in exchange for it, she took out the lapis crystal and put that underneath Poppy's pillow, sprinkling fairy dust all over the little girl. And off she flew, back down into the kitchen, sprinkling fairy dust over Mummy, out through the window and off. She followed the scent of the sea and the taste of the salt on her lips until she landed on the beach. It was a pebbly beach. She felt really, really happy. And she looked up, and Grandmother Moon was big, full in the sky, and her reflection was lying on the still waters. Oh, it was beautiful. And Grandmother Moon whispered to Fairy Fay, "What have you got in your pocket?" "Oh, I have a little tooth," said Fairy Fay. "I'm not very sure what to do with it. Can you help me?" "Yes, indeed," said Grandmother Moon. "Put it in a shell and float it out across the water to me." Fairy Fay did, and Grandmother Moon, with her light, lifted it up high, high, high into the sky, and placed that tiny tooth in the sky next to her. It twinkled. Grandmother Moon said to Fairy Fay, "Will you bring me more teeth? I can add them, and then they can all sparkle and shine in the sky." And if you're cleaning your teeth and it's dark, outside, if you look, you might see clusters of tiny little teeth. Because you probably know this, but Fairy Fay was the very first tooth fairy. Thank you for joining me. Thank you. Sophie, we have another riddle.
Yeah. The riddle for this Tuesday is, what goes around the world but stays in a corner?
What goes around the world but stays in the corner? Ooh, I wonder what that is. Can you guess? Come on, there's a few of you who are here and join us every week. Susan, can you guess what this one is? Ida? Lovely. Any of you that can tell us, please post it on our Wizard Presents Facebook page, or get your mummy and daddy to do that, and We'll let you know on Thursday what the answer is. Good night. Sleep well. Sleep well.